Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So if you just stumbled across this channel or you're a subscriber from my other channel, Jesus Loving Bracelets, hi, thank you for being here. So this channel, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction real quick and then we'll get right into the good stuff. But this channel is just going to be about books, everything reading, book reviews, what I read, what I liked, what I didn't, rating books, and just inspiring you to read if you are having trouble finding the inspiration, which I've definitely been there at times, and I am here for you. But today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you all of the books that I read over the summer so far. So if you guys don't know, if you are not coming here from my other channel, I am a teacher and I'm currently on summer break, so I've had a lot of time to read, which has been wonderful. Absolutely love it. So I've had a lot of time to digest these novels. So I have 5 books here that I have started and finished over the summer. I have 1 book I'm currently reading right now, and then I have 5 books that I just got from Half Price Books yesterday that I'm going to tell you guys about. So for each book that I read this summer, I'm going to give you guys what I rated it out of 5. And then I'm going to give you a brief spoiler-free synopsis to see if to show you guys, or to see, so you guys can see if you would like to read it yourself. So thank you guys so much for being here. Also, if you guys wouldn't mind subscribing to my other channel, it's going to be in the description box below. It's called Jesus Loving Bracelets. So basically, if you guys are new here on that channel, I make a bunch of bracelets and I sell them on my Etsy page. Most of them are Christian based. They say like love God, love Jesus, but you can check it out on my other channel, and if you want, I will also link my Etsy shop in the description box below. But this channel, like I said, is is all gonna be about books and reading, so that's why I made a separate channel. Alright, so let's jump right in. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the first book that I read this summer. So this first book is called Firefly Lane by Kristin Hannah. Kristin Hannah is my favorite author of all time. I love all of her books, well, all the ones I've read, which have been a lot. You guys might know her if you guys have read The Nightingale. That was a really, really popular story about World War II, 2 sisters in France during the time. Really popular book. That was the first one I read of hers, and I immediately knew she was going to be my favorite author after reading that. She's also written like The Great Alone, and a couple others, that The Four Winds. I'm trying to think what else, but I've read so many of her books. She is so good. You guys should definitely check her out. If you guys are someone who finds it hard getting into reading, get into Kristin Hannah books. She will make you love it. And if you don't like historical fiction, not all of her books are historical fiction, but like The Nightingale, The Great Alone, The Four Winds are. And man, I didn't think I would like historical fiction, but when I started reading her books, made me love the whole genre as a whole. So trust me, you will love it. But anyway, Firefly Lane. I tend to ramble. I have my notebook here to try to keep me on track, but can't make any promises. Okay, so I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars. So I read this when I was on vacation, and basically I went with my friend to Florida like a month ago, and the whole time she was like, Rachel, are you gonna get in the water? And I started this book and I just could not put it down, and I was like, okay, just one more chapter, and I was being really annoying about it, and I just couldn't swim or do anything else because I just had to finish this book. You know, when a book is so good you just can't focus on anything else. That's what this book was for me. So I'm going to tell you what I liked about it, what I didn't like, and like I said, I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free for you guys. Okay, so this story is about 2 girls, and it starts when they're around in high school, I think, and it just shows their friendship throughout the years. Also, this is a Netflix series, if you didn't know. I have not seen it yet. There's actually a sequel to this book that I bought, but I've not read it yet, so I'm going to read that first before I watch the Netflix series. Just a disclaimer. But anyway, it's about 2 girls and the decades of friendship that they've had, the ups and downs they've had, and it just shows how much they are there for each other, and it also shows how they've also kind of let each other down at times, but how they love each other through the whole thing. But it's really great. If I'm looking down a lot, it's because I'm just reading my notes. But yeah, it's a really good story about friendship. This book, I really, really empathized with both characters. And I like how the story switched back and forth between Kate's perspective, which is one of the girls, and Tully's perspective, which is the other girl. Yeah, I like how it's kept switching back and forth perspectives. And Kristen Hanna is smart because right when, at the end of a chapter, for one character's perspective, so for example, if I was reading something about Kate, it would just give me a really big, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And then it'll switch to Tully's perspective next, and you're like, no, I wanted to figure out what was going to happen with Kate. And it just, it makes you keep on reading because you just have to find out what's going to happen. But I love it and hate it when authors do that, when they, switch perspectives before you can figure out what's going to happen with that character, just to keep you reading. But it's a smart tactic, I think. To keep readers engaged. So I did like that. I also like how Kristen Hanna noted how different these two girls were, and how she's trying to make the point of even two people who are so different can still form a connection and can still get along. So I really like that message to the book as well. Cons of this book, I did think it got to be a little bit repetitive, especially towards the end. I don't know, once I got to around, let's see, there's like not 500, but there's like, okay, 479 pages of this. And when I got to around page 350 or so, or 400 or so, I started thinking, a lot of this information I've heard too many times before. So that's the only thing, is it did get a bit repetitive. There was some information that I didn't think was totally necessary to the story, but didn't derail me too much. I still love the story. The only other thing why I didn't give this 5 out of 5 stars is because even though sometimes I even though they're sad, I do like reading sad stories a lot of the time because I'm a very emotional person, and I don't know, I usually don't mind sad stories so much, but this book just got really, really depressing at times, especially towards the end with something that happens to one of the characters. I'm not going to spoil it, but it just really drags out how horrible and depressing it is near the end. And that's what really just made me relieved when I finished the book, because I was like, I can't take anymore. Like, I'm so depressed right now. So that was the only other thing where I was like, I don't know. It was just too much for me at the end. I was like, I can't take this anymore. I was just like crying. And sometimes a book is good when it makes you cry and it makes you feel those emotions, but when it's too much, it's, it can make you start to not like it as much, but still, overall, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. Really, really excellent book. I promise. Like I said, I was on vacation. I had so many other things I could have been doing, but the fact that I chose to read this instead shows how good of a book this is. So really great. Okay, moving on. Oh my goodness. The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager is the next book. I was surprised to find out that this book had so many terrible, terrible reviews on it. Most people hated the spoiler, they hated the twist, and you know what? I think they're just mad because they didn't guess it. And I'm like, okay, but I love a good twist that you don't expect, okay? I love a good twist like that, and Riley Sager surprised the crap out of me with this. So I loved that so much. This is probably like my favorite book that I read this summer. I can't stop talking about it. I was rambling to my boyfriend about this after I read it, and he's probably getting sick of me talking about it so much. I just couldn't stop though. I'm sorry. You guys would understand if you read the book. But I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I had no complaints with this book whatsoever. So y'all can come at me if you guys didn't like it, but I love this book. Okay, so first of all, like I said, it was a really, really great twist. It really shocked me to my core. I remember I was just reading in my room and I was just like audibly gasping. I'm like, no! And I was just like freaking out, and there were so many twists. It wasn't just one twist, but it was a twist upon a twist upon a twist. But there was one huge twist, but there were a couple of mini twists as well. So just really shocking. Any book that does that to me, any book that shakes me to my core, I'm like, this is a good book, I really, really empathized with the main character in this. She She's had a really strong addiction to alcohol. She really struggled with alcoholism, and Riley Sager really shows just how much of a problem that is. Like, you would think that you would understand how much an alcoholic can drink, but he really, really gets into it. Like, it will literally describe every single sip of alcohol that she takes in the book, and I was just astonished. I was like, wow, I knew an alcoholic would have to drink a lot. I still didn't think it was that much. So he really showed how much she was struggling with that. I really love how Riley Sager really delved into the main character's thought processes. I just really like that. It really made me empathize with her more, and I really like the main character. A lot of people who reviewed this book said they did not like the main character. They thought she was stupid and made dumb decisions, but I like that she wasn't perfect because it made her more relatable and understanding. You know, when a character is too perfect in a book, you end up not liking them because they're not relatable. So I actually like that she was very human, but you still love her and you still really empathize with her. I really, really love the setting of this book, a house on a lake. I would love to live on a house on a lake. My dream house is a cabin on the lake, on any lake, with a dock. That's what I want. That's what I want in my life. But yeah, this was a real page turner. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And it really made you love a lot of the characters and really, really fear others because you could not tell who was the bad guy, because it kept switching back and forth a couple of times. You're like, wait, I'm pretty sure this person's supposed to be the bad guy, but wait, but what about this person? You know, and it's just like, you can't, it's hard to trust yourself. You don't know. But then the twist, you're like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that at all, you know? So yeah, really great book, really great twists. I love it. 5 out of 5 stars. That's all I gotta say. All right, next book. This book, I was trying to find reviews online about this book and I could not find any, which I was very surprised about because I really like this book. This one is called Half in Love with Death, and it's by Emily Ross. I found this at some book fair that I went to with my friend a couple of weeks ago. This one I did not rate as highly. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, but I still recommend this. I recommend all of these books, by the way. I should have prefaced with that. But I really loved the ending. It had a really wild ending. Trust me, the ending makes it worth it. You're like, oh my gosh. It was kind of a twist, but you were also kind of expecting it. So I don't really know how to explain it. Well, like you were expecting what happened to happen, kind of, but you didn't expect it to happen in the way that it happened. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I know I say this about all the books, but you really empathized with the main character. This story is about... Oh my gosh. I did not even tell you what this book is about. Basically, The House Across the Lake is about a widowed actress, and she tries to kind of escape from the public eye, so she goes back to her lake house in Vermont, and her... since she's widowed, her husband died like a year ago or something, and she's just trying to cope with it. And then one day at the lake, she sees this woman drowning, and she saves her. And the more that she gets to know the woman, the more she starts to suspect that there's might be something off with the woman's husband. And then then when the woman goes missing, she starts to suspect that her husband had something to do with it. So that is what this book is about. I am so sorry, I completely forgot to give you guys the synopsis. But this book, Half in Love with Death, is basically where this girl, what's her name? Caroline, I believe? Yeah, Caroline's the main character. And basically, her older sister, Jess, disappears at the beginning of the story. And just her parents can't stop fighting ever since her sister's death. And everyone seems like, is always like, oh, I'm sorry about your sister, but people don't have the urgency you would think they would have when someone disappears. I mean, some characters do, like her dad. Well, it was suspected that her sister ran off to California, so her dad, kind of a spoiler, but not really, goes off to California to try to find her. But that is basically the only sense of urgency you would think that your family would have when someone goes missing. A lot of the time, some of these characters, you're like, whoa, I mean, I would think that you would care more. You know what I mean? So this book kind of drives you crazy with how some of the other characters react to her sister's disappearance. You know? Because they seem sorry, but they also seem like, yeah. Like, they act like it's not a big deal. You know? So it kind of drives you nuts with that, if that makes sense. But yeah. This book really shows, Half in Love with Death really shows how much the main character really cared for her sister and how she felt like she was the only one who wanted to find her. Her and her sister's boyfriend, what was his name again? Tony, that's right. Tony. And basically, Tony seems like the only other guy that seems to want to find Jess. That's all I can tell you without spoiling it, but it's really good. The only cons of this, it was very, very predictable at times, and it did start to get a bit repetitive. And like I said before, some of the characters' reactions to her sister's disappearance didn't really make sense. I mean, when you find out what happens at the end, some of their reactions kind of make sense, but others, I'm like, it doesn't seem like you would react that way if someone just went missing, you know? But really like this book. Not as much as The House Across the Lake or Firefly Lane, but it was still a really good read. I definitely still recommend. So that is Half in Love with Death. Okay, the next book. I love this book. I love it so much. It's called, of course, Brave New World. Oh my gosh. I cannot say enough about this book. This book blew me away. Okay, so let me just start. It's basically, the synopsis, if you don't know it, it's a dystopian novel where basically I'm just gonna read the synopsis on the back. Darkly satire version of a utopian future where humans are genetically bred to passively serve a ruling order. A powerful work of speculative fiction that has enthralled and terrified readers for generations, it remains remarkably relevant to this day as both a warning to be heeded as we head into tomorrow and as thought-provoking, satisfying entertainment. Okay, so basically, yeah, it's like a really screwed up society where you're like, oh my gosh, these people are so dumb. Why would they do this the whole time? It's really confusing at first, but basically, I'm trying to think of things that make this society really screwed up. So for example, one thing is you're not supposed to fall in love with one person. You're supposed to have multiple partners, and it's just about lust, and it's not about love at all. So that's one really screwed up part. Another part is there are no mothers and fathers in this. Like I said on the back, humans are genetically bred. So the idea of someone being a mother was very like, what? That's crazy. There used to be mothers and fathers in the past. People would talk about this in the book like that was a crazy concept. And then I can't tell you that without spoiling it. Never mind. I was gonna say something else. But yeah, people are just nuts in this book. And then there's something that they take. It's like a pill or something. It's called Soma or something. But whenever a character feels bad or they want to forget something or feel better, they would take Soma to basically forget all their problems. So it's basically like a drug or something that they take when they just want to escape their reality or something. But yeah, basically, I thought this book was excellent. Especially the last couple of chapters had me hooked, and there were so many great quotes in this book. I'm going to read you my favorite one. You guys have probably already heard this one before. But the quote goes, "But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin." I want to get a tattoo of that quote because that is the best quote of the book, I think. But there are so many good quotes, especially, I think it was chapter 16, when he's talking to Mustafa Mond, which is one of the world controllers in the book. But again, I'm not going to spoil that conversation because it's just so good. Is that the right chapter that I'm thinking of? Yeah, I think it's chapter 16. So many good quotes. But yeah. I thought the ending was quite tragic, but it had a very good, very solid ending. Huxley, he Huxley is really good at making you crazy in this book with how stupid people are. And it just amazed you with how dumb some characters were, and you just think to yourself, why are you going along with this the whole time? You know, it's just crazy how messed up this society is. And this book is supposed to be like a warning against what the future will be like if we don't fix some things. And let me tell you, after reading this book, I'm a little bit scared. You know, basically, there's one part in the book, this isn't a spoiler really, but people don't read in this society. It's almost like Fahrenheit 451, but not quite. I don't think books were illegal in this society. I just don't think people had them because the world controllers thought that people wouldn't be able to understand them. And so they're like, well, we're not going to bother with that. People won't get it. And that's a crappy attitude, I think. Like, no, people need to read. People need to read more. People need to be educated. Or else stuff like this is going to happen. What happens in this book? But yeah. This book makes you feel very fearful of the future. And it just shows how people will do anything to escape any sort of pain. And how that's a problem. How sometimes pain is a necessary thing in life. And I could not agree more. I loved the unconventional protagonists in the story. I love how they really defy the social norms, which weren't normal at all. When really the unconventional protagonists were really the only ones making sense in the story. But yeah, I love the overall message of the book. I wrote it down. You can either choose the truth in life and risk feeling pain, or you can choose happiness in life, which isn't real happiness, and choose to live in ignorance. So I love that message. The only downsides of this book were, which I guess am I allowed to give a book 5 out of 5 stars if I found some parts not totally ideal? Well, I still do, just because the ending and overall it was so good. These are just little complaints I have. The only cons were some parts were a bit confusing in the book, and there was a couple parts in the book where there were so many people talking at once you could not tell who was talking. There was one part where there was like no line breaks and you couldn't tell who was saying what. So there were a few confusing parts of the book, but I promise if you guys start this book and you find yourself like wanting to rip your hair out and you're like, I can't do this, I don't get it, keep reading. I promise you it will be worth it in the end. I promise you. But yeah, I think this is my new favorite book of all time. Pretty sure. Love Brave New World. So glad I read it. I'm trying to read more classics right now. But, yeah, so good. Alright. This last book that I read from start to finish over this summer was Holly by Stephen King. Alright, so I gave Holly a 4 out of 5 stars. And before I get into the synopsis, I want to tell you guys, I've only read from start to finish one other Stephen King book. I read The Shining. Only because normally I love books more than movies, but Stephen King, if you ever see this, I'm very sorry. But I love The Shining movie way better than I love the book, way better. So I thought the book would be good, and I was really actually quite disappointed with the book. I'm sorry. I just loved Stanley Kubrick's, am I saying his last name right? Version of The Shining so much more. But I did like the book, but I just did not think it was anywhere near as chilling as the movie. That's just my opinion. It's okay if you disagree, but that's just my opinion. So, I've started a couple of other books of Stephen King's. I know I started it, and there were a couple others. I can't remember what they were called, but I've never started and finished a book by him except for Holly. So this is actually a fairly recent book that came out. And this is supposed to take place during COVID-19 and all that stuff going on around that time in 2020. So let me get to my notes. So first thing, what I loved about this book, Stephen King really, really made you love and empathize with the protagonists in the story and really hate the antagonists. And I know that would seem like that would be an obvious thing that an author does, but especially with the antagonist, he does a great job of just making you hate the bad guys. Like, they are the most morally ugly, morally repulsive characters that you've ever met in your entire life. Like, oh my gosh. Well, I mean, they're fictional. Thank God they're fictional. But you just hate them so much. I've never felt so much hatred towards characters in a book that were the antagonists than in this book. And I am not a hateful person, so that's saying a lot. But yeah, this book, it just keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. Camera just said I am running out of space, so I had to go delete some stuff. But yeah, I love the multiple different perspectives in the story. So let me tell you what it's about first. So basically, I'm just going to read the synopsis on the back. So it says, when Penny Doll calls the Finders Keepers Detective Agency, hoping for help locating her missing daughter Bonnie, Holly Gibney, a detective, is reluctant to accept the case. Her partner Pete has COVID, her very complicated mother has just passed away, and Holly is meant to be on leave. But something in Penny's desperate voice makes it impossible to turn her down. Meanwhile, mere blocks from where Bonnie Doll disappeared live Professors Rodney and Emily Harris. They are the picture of respectability, married people who are devoted to one another, and semi-retired lifelong academics. They're college professors. But they are also harboring a shocking, unholy secret in the basement of their well-kept, book-lined home, one that may be related to Bonnie's disappearance. And it will prove nearly impossible to discover what they are up to, for they are savvy, they are patient, and they are utterly ruthless. Now Holly must summon all of her formidable talents to outthink and outmaneuver these unimaginably depraved and brilliantly disguised adversaries in this chilling and unforgettable masterwork from Stephen King. So, yeah, so basically there's this detective, her name is Holly, and she gets a call from this mother saying her daughter is missing, and she just, even though Holly's going through a lot of things right now because her mother just died, she says, okay, I want to hop on the case. Even though her partner tells her she shouldn't because she's already going through so much, she feels compelled to anyway. And just the whole time the way she pieces together everything by the end just shows how smart and what a good detective she is. Like, she's amazing. I love Holly. But yeah, this book kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, especially since it kept switching characters' perspectives. Again, it did the same thing as in Firefly Lane. Right when you were about to find out what happened in one character, then it goes to another character's perspective, and you're like, no, wait. You gotta be patient with it. But it's such a fast read because you will get this book done so quickly because you just have to find out whether she busts these guys or not. But yeah, it keeps you on the edge of your seat. I also like how Stephen King, even though there were so many just terrible parts of the story, not terribly written, but just terrible, like, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awful that happened to this character. I do like that he gave you a lot of breaks some of the time from the terror. Like, there was one storyline, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there was this writer, and she met this sweet old lady who was also, like, this really famous poet, and they had, like, this really special bond and connection, and it was kind of just a little side story, but I really enjoyed that because it kind of just, gave you a break from all the terrifying things going on in the main storyline. You know what I mean? So I always like it when books and movies and shows do that, when it's supposed to be horror, but when they actually give you some breaks from the horror some of the time. Because there were some times where I'm like, I gotta put this down. I can't do it today. Even though it was such a good book, it's just, sometimes it can be too much, But the only things I would say are bad about this book is it did get too political at times. You could definitely see Stephen King's political views, which I don't mind, except it just took over the whole story, which is why this book did not get the best reviews, because too many people were saying it was too political. And yes, I agree with them, but also please don't let the politics in here prevent you from reading this. Like, that's the thing, they didn't derail you from enjoying the story, at least it didn't for me. So even though it was too political, I still really enjoyed the story. So that didn't bother me that much. The only other thing is it's gross. Like, it's just gross what happens. Again, I'm not going to tell you what happens because that would be a spoiler, but all I can say is don't be eating when you read this story. Okay? But again, I guess that's why it's horror. So I shouldn't really say that's a con in this because it's literally a horror novel. But yeah, but a really great book. And I always think Stephen King, his books are going to be like so difficult to read because he does use really big vocabulary a lot. But if you are intimidated by King's writing, this book was not as difficult to understand as I thought it would be. It's actually a quite easy read, and that's what made it really enjoyable. So definitely recommend this. This was a great book. Alright, so those are all the books that I read this summer. Currently, I just started reading A Tale of Two Cities, a story about what's going on during the French Revolution, I believe. But yeah, I'm not too far in. I'm only on like chapter 5 or so, but I really like it so far. It's slightly confusing, which I kind of expected because it's another classic, but I'm piecing things together and it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm really enjoying it so far. And I'm really excited to read more later tonight. But before I do that, I need to show you guys my new books. I just dropped one that I got from Half Price Books last night. So, first one, a lot of these you guys are going to recognize if you guys love to read, because I'm sure you guys have heard about these. This first one is called A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And this one, if you guys know, is part of, I think, a 4-book series, and I just had been... The internet has been raving about this series. It's just being blown up. Everyone seems to love this series, so I just had to try it. I kind of like fantasy, but only very specific fantasy books. There was a series that I read when I was younger for a school project. It was called Fablehaven. Best fantasy series I think I've ever read in my entire life, even though I don't think I read all the books. I don't think I got to the 4th and the 5th one, but that was only because I didn't have time, not because I didn't want to. They were so good, what I read so far. Definitely, if you guys have not read Fablehaven, you need to check it out. It's amazing. But I'm not a huge fantasy person, but I definitely can get into it. So I'm just going to read you the synopsis of this first one. So it says, when 19-year-old huntress Feyre, is it Feyre? It's spelled Feyre. Fairy or fairy or fair? I don't know. Kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairylands. An ancient wicked shadow is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. Ooh, that sounds really interesting. So, I don't know which of these books I'm going to read first once I'm done with A Tale of Two Cities, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be this one. And I have not read a series in a long time. I think the last series I read was Harry Potter, and that's not that bad because I read Harry Potter when I was in college. Okay, so it wasn't when I was a kid. I've read many other series besides that. But, yeah, I think that's the last series I read, so I'm really excited to start a new one. So really excited to read that. This next one I've also been hearing about all over the internet. It's called Summer in the City by Alex Astor. And it's supposed to be an enemies to lovers romance book or something. And I'm not big on romance books. I can't even think of a book that I've read that has only been about the romance. Purely. Like, I've read many books where romance is a big part, but it's not like... it's not the whole story, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think I've ever even read a purely romance book. I could be wrong, but I don't even think I have, which is actually crazy to me. But Summer in the City. So the synopsis, it says 27-year-old screenwriter Elle has the chance of a lifetime to write a big budget movie set in New York City. The only problem, she's had writer's block for months and her screenplay is due at the end of the summer. In a desperate attempt to get inspiration, Elle ends up back in the city she swore she would never return to.
in an apartment she could never afford, floor-to-ceiling windows, skyline views, and a new coffee shop to haunt included. It's the perfect place to write her screenplay until she realizes her new neighbor is tech billionaire bachelor Parker Warren, her stairwell hookup from 2 years ago. It's been a lovers-to-enemies situation ever since. When seeing him again turns into a full night of hate-fueled writing, Elle realizes her enemy-twisted muse just might be the key to finishing her screenplay, if she can stand being around her polar opposite. She writes anonymously, and he's on the cover of every business magazine. He frequents fancy red carpeted events, and she doesn't like leaving her emotional support 5-block radius. One summer, one wall apart, he needs to fake a buzzy relationship during his company's precarious acquisition. She needs to write a movie around a list of NYC locations. Both need a break from their unrelenting schedules and a chance to rediscover the skyscraper glimmering, pizza-crusted, sunlit charms of the city. Summers always end, and so will this agreement. It's all pretend, promise, until it isn't. But oh my goodness, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but this is such a pretty cover. And look on the inside. Just look at this. Like, that's so cute. And look along the spine. That's crazy. I'm really excited to read this just for the cover. But yeah, this seems really good, and I'm really excited to read a romance novel. So I'm excited to read that too. This next book, when I went to Half Price Books yesterday, I didn't care which Riley Sager book I got. I just knew it had to be a Riley Sager book because The House Across the Lake, this one that I read, so good. So I was like, I gotta read more. But this one is called With a Vengeance, and this is brand new. So I'm really excited. So, the synopsis. In 1942, 6 people destroyed Anna Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Ooh. Under false pretenses, Anna has lured those responsible for her family's downfall onto a luxury train from Philadelphia to Chicago, an overnight journey of 13 hours. Her goal? Confront the people who've wronged her, get them to confess their crimes, and deliver them into the hands of authorities waiting at the end of the line. Justice will at last be served. But Anna's plan is quickly derailed by the murder of one of the passengers. As the train barrels through the night, it becomes clear that someone else on board is enacting their own form of revenge, and that they won't stop until everyone else is dead. With time running out before the train reaches its destination, Anna is forced to hunt the killer in their midst while protecting the people she hates the most. In order to destroy her enemies, she must first save them, even if it means putting her own life at risk. Ooh, sounds really good. I'm excited. Oh, I might have to read this first after A Tale of Two Cities. I don't know. Help me. What do you think I should read next? Tell me in the comments below. Tell me. All right, next book that I got was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I've been meaning to read this for so long, and I can't believe I haven't. It's a classic. There's no There's no synopsis on the back, or just this nice picture of him, or on the inside cover. But my mom read this, my boyfriend read this, everyone tells me how good it is. There's a reason why it's a classic. So I am super, super excited to read this. Last book is also another classic, The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And my boyfriend was telling me I have to read this too. So I'm really excited to read this too. So it says, America's first psychological novel, Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter is a dark tale of love, crime, and revenge set in colonial New England. It revolves around a single forbidden act of passion that forever alters the lives of 3 members of a small Puritan community. Hester Prynne, an ardent and fierce woman who bears the punishment of her sin in humble silence, the Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale, a respected public figure, who is inwardly tormented by long-hidden guilt, and the malevolent Roger Chillingworth, Hester's husband, a man who seethes with an Ahab-like lust for vengeance. The landscape of this classic novel is uniquely American, but the themes it explores are universal: the nature of sin and guilt, the clash between our private and public selves, and the spiritual and psychological cost of living outside society. Constructed with the elegance of a Greek tragedy, The Scarlet Letter brilliantly illuminates the truth that lies deep within the human heart. I just love the themes it says it has, the nature of sin and guilt. Those are my themes. Anything that where it shows how a character is going through guilt,
but finds their way to forgiveness, I eat that stuff up. I eat that stuff up. I just love that. I just love when people realize that they can be forgiven, that they can change, that they can do better, and that they use their past mistakes to change themselves. Say, I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be a good person now. I love that. Love that stuff so much. So I'm really, really excited to read this for that. So thank you, Will, for the recommendation. But yeah, that is everything that I had today. All the books that I read over the summer, the book I'm reading now, and the new books I just got from Half Price Books. So if you guys like my channel, and you like, what I do here, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and I'm just starting out on this channel, so it would mean a lot to me if you guys would subscribe, please. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I'm really, really excited to see where this channel goes. Again, I just love reading. I love talking about books, so I just wanted a whole channel to do that. So sorry if I was talking really fast and everything. I'm just really, really, really excited. But yeah, I love you guys so, so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.